kind friends all gathered round, there's something I would say, that what brings us together here has blessed us all today. Love has made a circle that holds us all inside, where strangers are as family and loneliness can't hide. You must give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. I've walked these mountains in the rain. I've learned to love the wind. I've been up before the sunrise to watch the day begin. I always knew I'd find you, though I never did know how. But like sunshine on a cloudy day, you stand before me now. So give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Love is born in fire, it's planted like a seed. Love can't give you everything, but it gives you what you need. And love comes when you're ready, love comes when you're afraid. Your greatest teacher, the best friend you have made. So give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Give yourself to
Good morning. Great to have everyone together. I like the excitement of returning people and all of the love and joy that brings. We're going to start our service by ringing the bell. We ring the bell to begin all of our services. We ring it 3 times. The first is to call us back into covenant. We are on the unceded land of the Ohlone people. They were displaced, colonized, and their land was taken. Now they seek to regain their land as well as to pass on their heritage and their customs and their culture to their descendants. Everything that we do to help them restore their rights and equality and sovereignty is working our way back into covenant. The second bell calls us into relationship with ourselves and with one another, to recognize broken promises or unhealed hurts or lingering scars where being right was more important than being in right relationship. We intentionally gather to invite an ever-widening circle of compassion, commitment, and solidarity until we are all beloved to one another. And the third bell calls us into relationship with our children and our children's children out to the seventh generation, reminding us that what we do today or what we fail to do will be felt by those who come after us.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Davis, your worship associate this morning. How many of you seen the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once? Oh, good, okay. Well, then you know that in the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, the main character, Evelyn, is trying to keep her immigrant Chinese family together while their main source of income from their laundromat is audited by the IRS. Her husband, Waymond, appears to be ineffectual, and then Evelyn is quickly drawn into an epic battle between characters in the multiverse. Every time she made a decision in her life, a split was made in the path of her existence, and the path not chosen continued in a different part of the multiverse with what would have happened if she'd continued on that path. Another version of her husband, Alpha Waymond, tells her that she's been chosen to fight a rupture in the interdimensional multiverse because she's the only version of Evelyn who's made terrible choices in every life decision. He tells her she is the worst possible version of Evelyn, and so will be unexpected by the villain who's unraveling the fabric of life as we know it. While Evelyn is tempted by other versions in her life in different paths of the multiverse, she ultimately chooses her own life. She chooses the kindness displayed by her version of Waymond, and she accepts her daughter's sexuality. Finally, she accepts the messiness and imperfection of herself. This is the ultimate in self-acceptance, the ability to choose our own flawed selves, even believing that we could have done better. As we come to worship together, let's welcome one another and have the people in Cole Hall wave to the people in Zoomlandia and vice versa. We're definitely better when we're all together in spirit, if not in location. All right, please join me in reciting our words to light our chalice. We light this chalice to remind ourselves to treat other people kindly, because we are all one family. To take good care of the earth, because we're all. To live lives full of goodness and love, because that is how we will become the best people we can be.
Good morning. Welcome to Mission Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Kathy Bain. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a member of the board. We are so glad you've joined us this morning. I'm going to start out by highlighting some of the current announcements. Congressional conversation after search today. This morning after service, the Committee on Ministry will be hosting the follow-up to our January post-sabbatical congregational conversation. We will explore the questions posed. If 1 year from now, we looked on the front page of regional news and saw an article on Mission Peak UUC, what would it describe? If it had a picture, what would it show? And if you were quoted, what would you say? There'll be a potluck dinner Saturday, March 23rd at 6 p.m. Please plan to come. We're also hosting a couple of parent night out events. The first one, Saturday, March 30th, members or friends of Mission Peak UUC are welcome to drop their children for a free night of childcare. RSVP is required. This evening will also have a short workshop on storytelling led by Reverend Greg. Anyone who would like to hone their skills and then come out and practice on the children are welcome. Unitarian Universalism is a radically inclusive, non-doctrinal, non-dogmatic, open-minded, and open-hearted faith. We are people who are all coming at truth from different paths. We gather together across different identities, experiences, and beliefs to affirm and promote the inherent worth of every person. Together we see our job is to love the hate out of this world, heal the hurt in ourselves and one another, and be the change we'd like to see in the world. If you're a guest for the first time, we welcome you. Here's a bit of information on how our hybrid service works. We use chat in Zoom or our book near the welcome table to share joys and concerns, personal milestones of importance, which will be read aloud in the service. We also have social hour after the service where we can visit with one another in breakout rooms or in the patio. The worship host will give you more information about this immediately after the service. Someone from our membership team will put a link in our weekly newsletter and chat so that you can see all the events coming up. We encourage you to join anything that speaks to you. We also put our welcome email, welcome@mpuuc.org, to request a newsletter or other information be sent to you. If you're here in person, our welcome table is right over there. Where you can sign up to receive a newsletter or ask any questions you might have. Finally, please make sure your mobile devices are silenced. We are so glad to be together today.
We invite you to stand and sing as you are willing and able.
Good morning. Good morning, good morning. My name is Ariel, and I am here to do the Time for All Ages. So I'd like to invite my friends who are young, or young at heart, or young in the knees to come and join me down here, if you'd like. Hello, hello. Hi, Maya. Nice to see you. I have a book here with me today. You kiddos might recognize it. We read it some time ago in Children's Chapel, but we've never shared it with the grown-ups, and it's one of my favorite books of all time. Hi, Maxwell. It's called No Matter What, and it's a story about being determined to love. It's a story with two characters. You can see them here on the cover. One is small, high character. One is small and the other is large. And those are the names in the story, small and large. Here they are on a hill. See them on the hill with some daisies? Yeah, see them on the cover? Greg's gonna help me out and hold the microphone. Then on the first page, here they are again. What's happening here? There's no words here. Are they still on the hill? See, one on the hill. Where's Large, Maya? Heading down there. Where do you think Large is heading? Maybe to the house. How do you think Small's feeling about that? Maybe a little sad, Rian says. Maybe Small doesn't want to go back to the house. So the story starts out. Small was feeling grim and grumpy. See him there? Angry, yeah. There's Large on the phone, maybe cooking some dinner and mopping the floor. Uh-oh, big mess. Good grief, said Large. What is the matter? I'm grim and grumpy, said Small, and I don't think you love me at all. Oh, Small, said Large, grumpy or not, I'll always love you no matter what. If I were a grumpy grizzly bear, would you still love me? Would you still care? Of course, said Large, bear or not, I'd always love you no matter what. But if I turned into a squishy bug, would you still love me and give me a hug? What do you think, she gonna hug a bug? Of course, said Large, bug or not, I'd always love you no matter what. No matter what, said Small with a smile. What if I were a crocodile? I'd still hold you close and snug and tight and tuck you up in bed each night. But does love wear out? Does it break or bend? Can you fix it or patch it? Does it mend? What do you think, like this little toy here? The toy can be fixed, can love? With time together, a smile and a kiss, love can be mended with things like this. But what about when you're far away? Does your love go too, or does it stay? Yeah, looks like Large has fallen asleep, and the candles are blowing out. And Small's maybe feeling a little nervous. Is the love still there? What do you think? I wonder. Look up at the stars. They're far, far away, but their light reaches us at the end of the day. It's like that with love. We may be close, we may be far, but our love still surrounds us wherever we are. Look at all those stars. Did Large ever give up loving Small? Did Large keep finding new ways to love Small? I wonder where a love like that comes from. What do you say we head off down to Children's Chapel and see what ideas we have? Cool, let's go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alyssa Santos, Volunteer Program Manager with Abode Services. Abode is the Bay Area's largest homeless housing and services provider. As part of our growing response to the region's housing and homelessness crisis, we now operate dozens of programs that help to rehouse people in need as quickly as possible. The combination of housing programs and wraparound social services forms the core of our Housing First Approach program. If you've never heard of Housing First, I'm happy to share a little bit, but it is the intention to house an individual first, regardless of any challenges or circumstances they may be experiencing, whether it be substance abuse, mental health issues. We believe that housing them first is the key to permanent supportive housing. In my role as the volunteer program manager, I help to recruit and maintain relationships with our volunteers, some of which have been volunteering with us for decades, and others who are new and helping me with quick little projects that I have in my first few weeks. And I've been in conversation with Ariel and Reverend Greg, and we've explored possible ways for us to partner together. And I look forward to working with you and learning more about your congregation's values and supporting the community at large. Thank you.
I'm here to tell you that I was the dirt beneath the dirt.
I ended up living in my car because, rent was pretty expensive even back then.
I felt like a loser. I failed.
When I got divorced or was separated, I was lost because now I'm homeless.
My story is different than others. I ended up that way from domestic violence. You know, people don't just ask for that.
I just was basically into, getting by every day. And then each day turned into a week turned into a month, and then a month turned into a year.
I mean, I think there's a lot of homeless people. Once you're out there, you really just don't know what to do. You just go through the motions. Let's just survive for the day and then worry about tomorrow.
I've been out there for a long time and out sleeping on the sidewalks, raining, cuddling under a carport or a garage.
People do not choose to be homeless. I'm living proof of that.
We're talking, I was out there for a few years, trying not to be observed, not to be seen.
People don't realize that everything you have, if you leave, you have to take everything of value with you.
You don't have any real rights.
Being homeless without having a shelter means, how are you gonna take a shower? Is there a public restroom that you can go into to rinse your face off, to brush your teeth? Things that people take for granted.
But you also have customers that are, going to different businesses, coffee shops and so forth. They will report you just for sleeping in your car, and that's just a sad reality of being homeless.
The hardest part is just keeping your basic necessities together. Food, water, keeping your clothes clean, taking showers.
Because I'm homeless, that's immediately what people will recognize, and they will put me into a category, homeless person, got to be a bad person,
Abode opened the doors for me.
In honesty, until Abode came, there was really no hope.
Abode was there for me when I was not able to help myself.
Abode taught me how to live my life again.
I'm so blessed for knowing the people, the staff here.
When they put the key in our hand, we were utter disbelief. It's like, wow, this is wonderful.
They stand up for the people that cannot stand up for themselves.
They gave me the pathway to get my life back in every aspect.
Once you walk through those front doors, that front door there, you know you were home. It's yours.
I learned from a boat that I'm not a bad person.
I felt really empowered.
They taught me a lot about, how it feels to be respected again and have somebody on your team.
Now you're building a foundation. Now you got your house. Now you just take care of whatever little things that you couldn't do.
It seriously saved my life, what they've done for me.
Well, I think that they're providing the housing in itself has allowed me to continue to recover, to, get to where I can hold my head up high.
I'm so grateful for Abode Services giving me life, giving me hope.
I opened the door. I yelled to myself, I'm home. That says it all right there. And close the door. The world is out there, but you're inside.
If you are able to reach across distances and class and help those who for a variety of reasons have found themselves in the growing rank of unhoused people and families, we invite you to be a difference maker in your local community. Make your check payable to MPUUC with Abode in the memo line. You can put your contribution in the plate. All the cash will be counted toward this special fund. You can also use the bill pay option in your online banking or drop your check into the Mission Peak mail slot or pay online with a credit or debit card, choosing special as the donation type and putting Abode in the message. Thank you for making a difference for the people in your community and also helping to establish a place of learning and service, which our multi-generational program will make use of in providing food, backpacks, and holiday gifts to those in housing transition. Thank you.
One of the things that allows us to find hope, especially in the times where there is struggle and chaos around us, is the love and the support that we show one another. If you have a joy or a concern that by sharing with this community might bring some resilience or restoration or hope, we invite you, if you are with us online, to type it into the chat. If you are here in Cole Hall, there's a book back there. You can print a very brief message of something that is a joy or a concern, and that having it read aloud will create a sense of connection and solidarity with everyone and remind us all that we are not alone in what we do. If you would like to light a candle while the music of our Song of Reflection plays, we invite you to come forward and take one of our candles and drop it into the water. and it will light up. It's really a miracle in itself. And if you have a joy or concern that's a little bit more personal, please contact myself or Reverend Barbara, and we will find a time to have a conversation. Finally, one last candle for all of the hopes and all of the hurts still too tender to escape the silent sanctuary of our heart. May, for the sake of love, we remember to keep our doors, our hearts, our minds, and our arms open. Please join me in the spirit of this reflection. This is a poem written by Nebraskan poet by the name of Faith Sheeran. It is called Turtle in the Road. It was the spring before we moved again, a list of what we must do on the refrigerator, when my daughter and I found a turtle in the road. He was not gentle or shy, not properly afraid of the cars that swerved around his mistake. I thought I might encourage him towards safety with a stick, but each time I touched his tail, he turned fiercely to show me what he thought of my prodding. He had a raisin head, the legs of a fat dwarf, the tail of a dinosaur. His shell was a deep green secret he had kept his whole life. I could not tell how old he was, but his claws suggested years of reaching. I was afraid to pick him up, afraid of the way he snapped his jaws, but I wanted to help him return to the woods, which watched him with an ancient detachment. I felt I understood him because I didn't want to move either. I was tired of going from one place to another, the introductions, the goodbyes. I was sick of getting ready, of unpacking, of mail sent to the places where I used to live. But at last I put my stick away and left him to decide which direction was best. If I forced him off the road, he might return later. My daughter and I stood a while considering him. He was a traveler from the time of reptiles, a creature who wore his house like a jacket. I don't know if he survived that afternoon in the road. I am still thinking of the way his eyes watched me go. I can't forget his terrible legs, so determined to take him somewhere. His tail, which pointed behind him at all the dark spaces between the trees. Much applause from the people online. Thank you. It is so nice to have Vaughn with us and the whole choir. And also a great joy of appreciation for David Johnson, who is having his inaugural bout over on the controls as our worship host today. It was the spring before we moved again, a list of what we must do on the refrigerator when my daughter and I found a turtle in the road. He was not gentle or shy, not properly afraid of the cars that swerved around his mistake. Have you ever had one of those moments where in the midst of advancing just one of the epic subplots of your life, like just getting to the other side of the road, and you encounter one of those immense, larger-than-life conflicts like traffic, or the fact that you're suddenly, for no explicable reason, a turtle, and everything begins to feel so unreal and absurd, and so you wonder, is it the world or is it me that has gone crazy? And so you press pause for a moment and you step out of your life and you look closely at all this craziness and wonder, who wrote this movie? And how did I get to be in something so weird? I mean, really, hot dog fingers? Really? Of course, hot dog fingers comes from the movie that Sharon reminded us of in the Call to Worship, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. If you haven't seen it, you should. Not only because it won 7 Academy Awards, like Best Picture and Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress and Best Director and Best Screenplay, and not just because it combines philosophical themes like nihilism and existentialism and absurdism in a surrealistic comedy with martial arts and an immigrant narrative, or that it cogently explores issues like neurodivergence and depression and generational trauma. And not just because the soundtrack has David Byrne and Andre 3000 and Randy Newman, but really because, in some ways, it invites us all to stop and consider our lives in a new way and ask out loud the question most of us have probably privately wondered: what if this current version of my life is really just one of hundreds of realities that I stumbled into because of the sequence of choices that I made? And particularly, what might happen if so many of our choices get made out of just plain fear, or maybe just out of ignorance? Show of hands, how many people here feel like a good portion of the time we're basically just doing the best that we can with our lives, but we're really just making it all up as we go along? And if we're really honest, we spend a fair amount of time preoccupied with fears of getting it wrong, or upsetting people along the way, or worried that we'll wind up as the worst version of ourselves in the multiverse. One of the reasons that I think this movie did so well, I mean, besides the hot dog fingers, is because so many of us have spent at least a little time wondering how different our lives would be had we made just a few different decisions, or not made so many decisions out of fear or well-intentioned ignorance. I mean, most of us, be honest, are released into our lives without even the simple instructions it would take to assemble an IKEA coffee table. We are all at least a little bit like the turtle in the road, just trying to get to the other side. And most of the time, we're grateful to be somewhat oblivious of all the cars swerving around us, especially when we take into account all the infinite number of possibilities that could have gone wrong, but mostly didn't. It's true that in today's version of the multiverse, we might be a little more aware of the chaos or mayhem around us than in years gone by. What with multiple wars going on and a global pandemic and climate change and corruption on the rise and democracy on the brink. But it just might be that other parts of the multiverse are bombarding us with news, some of which may well be disinformation, intentionally pushing us toward overwhelm, sort of like a stick prodding us, knocking on our shell, when all we really want to do is cross this road in peace. Thank you very much. But let's press pause again on this sermon shoehorned with metaphors, and let's step out of the weirdness it describes to consider another perspective. Not from a different individual perspective, but from a collective perspective. Because it's not only individuals and turtles trying to cross the road, but entire communities as well. And the highway this particular community is attempting to cross is a multi-lane, cross-cultural, time-traveling dimension of a multiverse. And it's a little daunting because it feels like we've been trying to cross this particular highway for a while now. And unfortunately, we've been jostled and turned around a few times already, once by a passing bulldozer driven by a transitional minister, and another time by an 18-wheeler carrying a pandemic. And to make it even more interesting, now we have a minister standing beside us, prodding us with a stick. And he's flanked by others, probably the staff, asking a variety of semi-rhetorical questions like, do you really think it knows where it's going? Or do you think we should pick it up and take it back to where it was? And the community, wearing its house like a jacket, is annoyed by the stick and the minister and all the questions. It keeps reaching around with its raisin head and snapping back and prodding at all the prodding, content to be exactly where it is, despite all the traffic that could end its journey like the clearing of one's throat. Forgive me for lifting up such an uncomfortable possibility of a journey ending, but that's where my mind is these days. See, I'm in the middle of not one, but 2 year-to-live classes. One that I am taking through Spirit Rock Meditation Center, and one that I am teaching here with Terry King at Mission Peak. A Year to Live is a course based on the book by meditation teacher Stephen Levine. The book was based on his 40 years of studying mindfulness and his work as a hospice clinician, shepherding people through the dying process. After years working in hospice, he noted that so many of those who came to him were tragically unprepared because death was uncomfortable to think about, and because the society we live in is so death-phobic and avoidant, they gave death very little thought and often felt immensely unprepared and terrified when they discovered that it actually was knocking on their door. It wasn't that they never realized that death would happen someday. It's just that the more fear that came up around it, the more they avoided thinking about it, and the more ignorant they remained. The book describes the existential experiment that Stephen and his wife, Andrea, embarked on to be more conscious of what dying actually involves, what it means, what it requires, and what they could learn about more mindfully and wholeheartedly if they just prepared for their own death. Part of the result they found is what they hoped, that the people who began working with them in this mindful exploration were much more able to approach their death with acceptance and love and appreciation and meaning and less struggle and fear. But the bigger part, which they didn't necessarily expect, was that those who did this work consciously preparing for their hypothetical death discovered that they were actually able to integrate a good bit of that learning back into their actual living. So much so, it changed their living and changed their choices and changed their life. People realized that to have a death with more meaning and less regret required having a life with more intentionality and more clarity. It's an existential version of Stephen Covey's adage, begin with the end in mind. So, believe it or not, this is not unrelated to the turtle, or the congregation crossing the road, or the minister standing behind the congregation crossing the road, prodding it with a stick, asking, do you think that it actually knows where it's going? This morning, right after worship, we're going to have a congregational conversation based on the hypothetical questions asked by the Committee on Ministry when I came back from sabbatical in January. The conversation is really going to be around a supposition, asking us to imagine a year from now, when we open the news feed on our computer, or if you still get newspapers, and the first thing that we see from all the regional media outlets is an article on Mission Peak. The question being, why is Mission Peak in the news? If there's a picture in the article, what does it show? And finally, if you read down the article, you'll notice that there is a quote from you. What does it say? A year from now. This is, of course, calls us back to where we started, to contemplate the multiverse and which of the countless possibilities will become our actual future based on the many choices that many of us could make about the way that we inspire or influence this congregation over the next 12 months, times the number of people we have in the congregation, in addition to the countless influential variables such as the number of members that we attract or the array of new activities we pour our hearts into. And that isn't even considering the incalculable possibilities like what we choose to do after we hear the sermon by the guest minister with hot dog fingers. So many scenarios involving hot dog fingers that we've never really thought about. But to be in right relationship with the obvious and to pay homage to what Stephen Levine begs us to consider, we must name and acknowledge one of the most common and even unavoidable outcomes in the multiverse. That 1 year from now, only 10 months after our 30-year anniversary, Mission Peak is in the news because it shuts its doors, sells all its assets, and ends its ministry in the Tri-City areas forever. It would be newsworthy. This is truly one of the more sobering and depressing of the possibilities the multiverse might offer. But when you stop to consider the trajectory of increasing average age here, or the decreasing numbers in membership, or the high cost of living in this area, and the bad breaks that we've encountered, and you consider the 2020 research by UCC's Center of Analytics revealing that between 4,000 and 8,000 churches close per year. That's 75 to 150 churches closing each week. Failure to recognize this possibility would amount to abject determination to just remain ignorant. That said, let me press pause for a second and ask us to step back and observe this possible scenario and remind us of a few things. Stephen Levine never said that contemplating your own death would be a precursor to actually making it more likely to happen. He only said that considering and preparing for your own death would likely result in greater acceptance, appreciation, and meaning of your death when it actually did come. And part of the reason for that was because a conscious preparation for death almost always led to a more conscientious expression of life. It means making different, often better choices that result in living with less fear and dying with more appreciation and fewer regrets. The bottom line is that none of us came to this congregation to live like Evelyn, the main character of the movie, dreading that she had actually become the worst version of herself in the multiverse, or the turtle with blinders on crawling through traffic without any real sense of where it was going. To make sense of all of this, I want to share a bit of theology that I was recently introduced to that struck me as particularly wise and liberating. It comes not from ancient or even modern theologians. It was not pulled from Christian or Jewish, native or Eastern scripture. It comes from my wife, Lucy, and I refer to it as Lucy Love Theology. My wife, Lucy, has followed a particular strand of the multiverse that quite a few of us might be familiar with. It was a strand that was definitely tethered tightly to love at the outset, but that in its early years got inadvertently wound up around chaos and some confusion and some doubt. So much so that she traveled her path and made choices, creating splits in the multiverse, appearing in accordance to what she'd chosen versus the choices that she could have made. But there's a part of her brain that contains a critical voice that kept track of all those choices and retained the power to cast doubt on where she wound up and what she was doing, or even who she was, and was it all enough? Sort of like that what-if mind that we talked about last week with Reverend Stephanie. Can anybody relate to having that kind of critical mind that asks those questions? So Lucy has lived with this for a long time, so much so that she has come to a Stephen Levine kind of wisdom of consciously knowing, even accepting this critical part of her brain, and actively deciding to wrestle away control of her narrative from this critical voice in her head. She is refusing to even consider that she is not the best version of herself in the multiverse. And she's doing spiritual practices to reinforce this understanding. Which brings us to a couple weeks ago, the third week in February, a week where the public schools where she teaches took off. And on the Thursday before her time away, she came home and announced to the entire household that we would all be participating in the upcoming Lucy Love Festival. Lucy Love Retreat, actually. And it was to be a week of conscious choosing. At every moment, in every circumstance, she was going to choose to respond inwardly and outwardly with love. Anything within her or around her that promoted doubt or confusion about her choice to love would be set aside and ignored. She posted signs in every room of our house, including in my office, that declared the following: ask yourself what you are doing to love Lucy right now. Now, I'm not going to say how all of this turned out, only to mention Molly and I were very proud to have made it through the whole week without being asked to leave the retreat. But I will say just how incredibly courageous and brilliant and revolutionary such a theology would be for anyone who was wise enough or brave enough or dedicated enough to apply it to their living. And if an entire congregation were to adopt such a theology wholeheartedly and throughout the entire membership, it would so transform everything around it to the point that it would probably break the multiverse. And people would instantly stop and realize there was no place in the world they would rather be than to be part of this community. There is something on the other side of the road, something we are trying to get to. And though it can feel like we're getting there at a turtle's pace, our path has not been a mistake. And though we likely have more than a minister, but an entire staff prodding us with sticks, it is only because such stick wielders so dearly want to enfold this place with a theology of Lucy love, asking us to consider responding to every single circumstance we encounter with a deliberate and conscious loving. Whether that's something we do through our making of music, or through the diverse array of our learning and multi-generational cross-cultural perspectives, or by bringing just a little order to an otherwise chaotic and uncertain world, we are poised to love the hate out of the places and people of this multiverse in ways that are stronger than hurt, stronger than doubt, maybe even stronger than death. It's time to take hold and carry this kind of living and this kind of loving where it needs to go, and know that no matter what happens, we are consciously committed to this path of the multiverse, to the glory of life. Please rise and join us in singing our final hymn, 1029, Love Knocks and Waits for Us to Hear.
Please join me in reciting these words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Friends, with a hand on your heart and one reaching out to the world, be that thread that helps connect the multiverse, whether it's through music or the diverse array of multi-generational or multicultural perspectives we support, or by just creating a little order in an otherwise chaotic universe. We are poised to love the hate out of places and people of this multiverse in ways that are stronger than hurt, stronger than doubt, and maybe even stronger than love. May we be about that work, and may it be restorative in us, around us, forever. Amen.